Hi, everyone, and welcome to No Kill in Motion. I'm David Smith with No Kill Colorado, here with Aubrie Kavanaugh from No Kill Huntsville, Alan Rosenberg from New Jersey Animal Observer, and a special guest today, Lisa Maasen. Did I get that right?
Pretty good, Maasen, yes.
Lisa Maasen from Hard Knocks Training out of Alabama. We want to talk about behavior and shelters today. And Aubrie, I know you have a lot of things that you think about on this. Why don't you give us an intro to this?
Too many things. Well, Lisa's the founder of Hard Knocks Rescue and Training in Huntsville, Alabama. And we first started engaging, God, I don't even know how many years ago it was, Lisa, when she was pulling what we would call behavior dogs from Huntsville Animal Services, because there are dogs in any shelter. I mean, they do very poorly in that environment. I mean, there's just too much stimulation. So the rescue part of what she was doing, we're trying to get dogs out of the shelter. And that's how we met. And I wanted to bring this subject up because something that we found in Huntsville is years ago, the big issue with shelters was shelters labeling dogs as unadoptable. But the public got wise to that, right? The public got wise to that and they started saying, well, wait, I wouldn't call that dog unadoptable. So why is the shelter calling that dog unadoptable? So now the new unadoptable is now a behavior dog. Okay. So what they're doing is they're taking dogs that do poorly in a shelter environment, which honestly is most of them. And we've talked about why that is before. And they're ending the lives of those dogs and they're making it sound like they're doing some noble thing. It's like some public safety function. So, and it's just not. And this has been an increasing problem in Huntsville. The behavior euthanasia has skyrocketed in the last 10 months. And we've got the shelter saying, oh, we're just trying to keep the public safe. No, I mean, some of the dogs that they're destroying literally are puppies or young adolescents whose brains are not fully developed and whose hormones just make them ill-equipped to be in a shelter. So I wanted to talk about this behavior euthanasia subject, and Lisa has a lot of experience with this. So hopefully we can get some of that knowledge out there and it can help other advocates, or maybe it can help shelters to learn, hey, this is what you're doing wrong, but this is what you could be doing.
All right. Well, there's a lot to chew on there, right? And right now I'm actually working, we're working through a bill in Colorado that I think endangers dogs because of the way it's worded for behaviors such as stereotypic behavior or piloerotic behavior, which is a weird word for me, but it's just like hair standing up on their back. They might be considered aggressive. And so,
Which is more just a symptom of over arousal.
Right, which is like normal anyway. So I really want to hear from you, Lisa. So what are you observing that shelters are getting wrong?
I think a lot of what shelters do wrong is that they try to provide too much stimulation when they should be trying to lower stimulation, because shelters in and of themselves are just overstimulating places. They're loud, they're smelly, they're scary, they're not soft, and they're not welcoming in most cases. And so the dogs are coming in there from running on the streets or being neglected or hungry or whatever brought them there, and now they're thrown into this strange environment with sometimes hundreds of other dogs barking and barking and barking, and their stimulation levels stay up so high they don't even sleep while they're there. You can see dogs who they'll feed 4 cups of dog food a day and they're still just skin and bones because their anxiety is just keeping their metabolism running. They need to be lowering the noise level. They need to be providing more enrichment and not throwing dogs into play groups immediately before they've had a chance to just decompress from the outside world and adjusting to the environment.
I find that really interesting because, I mean, we talk about it here quite a lot. The best shelter is a stressful environment because here I am as a dog. If I'm a dog, I'm lost. If I did have a family, I could have been a normal dog that just got out of the yard. And now I have these strange people here. I have all these animals I've never met before, and the smell of them and the sound of them. And we do have, you said hard, as soon as you said, we have these hard places, I think right away, the concrete floor, the cage, even if sometimes they'll have a bed or something like that, but it is a hard place and it's very confined. So Alan, Aubrey, well, let's go to Alan. Alan, what have you seen out there that you think shelters doing wrong in approaching this?
I think there's generally a lack of a strategic plan for each dog. So a dog comes in there and they're thrown in a cage and hope someone comes and adopt them, and nothing's really done. They don't take, they don't take them out. They don't provide them enrichment. There's really, as Lisa said, there's really no effort to quiet the environment. And it's a very passive approach. And that goes through behavior as well as adoptions and all aspects of sheltering. So it's an underlying symptom that affects the whole operation. But in regards to behavior, I would say over 90% of my shelters that I see really have no kind of behavior program. So if a dog has a behavioral challenge, they're really not done to do anything. At best, they say, okay, a rescue can take it. We'll operate under a pound model, but they don't really do much at all. Sometimes maybe the more proactive shelters may have some volunteer training program, but usually it's not very organized. So I think there's a lack of a strategic plan. I think whatever approach you go with, you need to have that approach applied to every dog that comes in and say, what's the plan for this dog?
Before we shift to the other aspect of this, I'm sorry, when you were talking, Alan, just now, it just made me think of something. And Lisa's aware of this. Under the category of what are shelters doing wrong? In Huntsville, the city spent $3 million recently to renovate the animal shelter. And it was in 3 phases. And phase 2 was to improve the dog kennel area. And what they did was they took a traditional sized dog kennel and they doubled it. So a dog now has a double living space, and they have a guillotine door between the 2 spaces. And they touted this as something that was, I looked back at a news story, I had to kind of marvel at it, because the woman who runs the kennel area of the shelter claimed that it was going to make the dogs stress-free, which of course we know is not true, right? All it did was it made it easier for the staff to clean the kennels. Because if a dog is stressed in this overstimulated environment that Lisa described, all that double space does is it gives them more room to pace, right? Having a few extra feet doesn't magically make a dog better. And we've been talking a lot in Huntsville lately about, with that $1 million, what could they have done with that? And there are some shelters in Alabama that are really no frills. There's this one in Lawrence County where it's outdoor. They've got 30 outdoor kennels. It's covered. They use the kind of roll-up chicken curtains at chicken farms. They have these roll-up curtains that roll up and down. And the dogs in those environments, still it's a shelter, right? But they're not inside this confined, compressed, hard space. And it's not ideal, but they're outside. So for me, that was just what they're doing wrong. I mean, gosh, $1 million could have been spent whole lots of other ways, but just doubling the kennel space clearly wasn't the solution, even though the city thought it was this wonderful thing. I'm sorry.
Right.
Sorry to interrupt.
No. I think that's a good point, because renovations and or sometimes new shelters, right, are always like, oh, everything's going to be better because we have new walls. And it's like, and the money that has to be spent on construction. Now, if a shelter's falling apart and it's becoming dangerous or something like that, that's one thing. But if it's just, we have an old shelter and we're killing too many animals, so we're going to build a new shelter. And the goal is never to change like a live release rate or anything like that. It's always, we're going to have this great, beautiful, new, cleaner shelter. It's like, I appreciate it. It should be clean. We should be taking care of the animals, but what's going to be the result of what actually happens?